Hello and welcome to another episode of the Chaos Chronicles. We are back today with Trent.
Hello.
Trent is going to be here for a two-parter that is actually his pick.
Yeah, I'm excited for it.
It's going to be very exciting. Today we're going to be talking about some of America's darkest days. The 2001 Anthrax attacks, which occurred just weeks after September 11th. But before we get too deep into things, I'm going to try my best to be like Connie here. Make sure that you go check out all of our social medias. They are all linked below. So go make sure that you give us a like, follow, and subscribe. All right. You ready to learn about 9/11 and anthrax?
Let's do it.
All right. So these anthrax attacks left 5 people dead and 17 infected. This takes place during a very scary time for Americans. And to understand the weight of these events, I really wanted to start at 9/11
Because they're it kind of sets a stage for this whole thing. So
it does. We're already in a state of being terrified. And now we have mysterious envelopes.
Yeah.
Yep. So September 11th, 2001. I forgot I added this in notes. Trent and I already had this conversation, but I remember the anthrax attacks, but not actually 9/11.
This is where Jess tells me that I'm old because I remember where I was on September 11th.
I think it's weird that, I mean, we're not that far apart in age, but I think that it's funny that I can't remember 9/11 at all. I have no memory of it, but I remember the anthrax attacks.
And I'm pretty much the opposite. Like, I remember exactly where I was when we got the news of September 11th, that whole day in school and like the whole thing. But then like anthrax, I'm like, yeah, I mean, I kind of remember that was going on and everything, but I don't remember anything specifically from that time, so I don't know.
I don't know. My parents must have really been following along with it or something. I don't know. Let us know if you remember 9/11, where you were. Do you remember the anthrax murders or not? It's just interesting to see how our memories work.
Yeah, especially for something that, most people were alive, in some age, during both of these. So, let us know where you were at, what you, remember from these two different distinct events in our lifetime.
Yeah. So for those who lived through 9/11, they remember the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center collapsing, the Pentagon in flames, and a field in Pennsylvania marked by the heroic sacrifice of United Flight 93's passengers. The morning of September 11th, 19 hijackers that were a part of Al-Qaeda terrorists executed a coordinated attack by using 4 commercial planes. 2 planes, American Airlines Flight 11 and United Airlines Flight 175, crashed into the north and south towers of the World Trade Center in New York City. The first plane hit at 8:46 a.m. and the second at 9:03 a.m. Within hours, both towers crumbled to the ground, killing 2,606 people inside and around the buildings, including office workers, first responders, and passerbys. At 9:37 a.m., American Airlines Flight 77 slammed into the Pentagon, which is the heart of the U.S. military operations in Arlington, Virginia. This claimed the lives of 125 on the ground and 64 on the plane. The fourth plane in Pennsylvania was United Airlines Flight 93. It's unknown what the exact target was for this one. The assumption was that it was either the Capitol or the White House. The passengers and the crew on board fought back against the hijackers and prevented the plane from reaching wherever it was intended to crash. And it crashed in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. I think that's how you pronounce it. All 44 that were aboard that flight did perish. In total, 2,977 people died that day, not counting the hijacks, and thousands were injured. It was the deadliest terrorist attack in history. The aftermath was full of chaos and grief. The New York City skyline was forever changed, and families mourned loved ones, and first responders who ran into danger faced unimaginable trauma. President George W. Bush and the rest of the U.S. government declared a global war on terror and vowed to bring Al Qaeda's leader, Osama bin Laden, to justice. Air travel halted and stock markets plummeted, and Americans felt vulnerable. Another thing happened. Americans came together in a way that we hadn't seen in decades. Cities held candlelight vigils with strangers hugging and praying side by side. American flags flew everywhere, and by late September, the flag sales had spiked so much that stores actually weren't able to keep them in stock.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's crazy to think about.
Absolutely insane.
Mm-hmm.
Quote, "United we stand," end quote, became a rally cry. People also took action. They donated blood, volunteered, raised money for victims' families. And in New York specifically, citizens brought food and water to the first responders working at Ground Zero. This unity fueled some to take action. Young men and women flooded military recruiting stations, driven to protect their country. There was a 20% jump in enlistments and over 180,000 new recruits joining the military, and many stated that their reason was 9/11.
Mm-hmm. You even hear that now with interviews with a lot of retired or still active duty people that say that was the catalyst that got them to join.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yep. Well, and now we're seeing that big decrease too, because a lot of those that are still in because of 9/11 are now retiring.
Yeah,
yep.
That makes sense.
Yeah, because it's been over 20 years now, mm-hmm. which is
so they've had
weird.
Full careers in the military now and are ready to be done.
Yeah.
So,
First responders also saw a wave of new recruits. Can't be shocked about that. On 9/11 in New York, 343 firefighters and 60 police officers lost their lives. In 2002, New York City Fire Department received over 20,000 applications.
Wow.
Which is double than normal, I guess, for them. Paramedics and EMT training programs also reported similar spikes. This unity and service set the stage for the challenges ahead, including the Anthrax attacks. This was a new type of terror. It was invisible, deadly, and personal.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. All right. Are you ready to get into the letters?
I am. Yeah, let's go for it.
All right. So on September 18th, just 1 week after 9/11, in Princeton, New Jersey, someone dropped off a handful of letters into a mailbox. These letters aren't just normal letters. They contain a fine powdery substance that can kill with a single breath. Anthrax spores. These letters contained phrases like "Death to America." A second batch that was even deadlier was mailed out on October 9th from the same mailbox. Targets are strategic, sending to places like newsrooms, NBC in New York, the New York Post, and American median Boca Raton, Florida, 2 Democratic U.S. Senators, Tom Daschle of South Dakota and Patrick LaHaye of Vermont, both vocal on national security. So, what is anthrax? Because I didn't actually know. I'm like, anthrax spores, sure.
Yeah.
Anthrax is caused by, forgive me, Bacillus, Bacillus, Anthracis, Anthracis. And it's a bacterial disease that mostly affects livestock. There are 3 forms of ways it can be transmitted: through skin ingestion and inhalation. Inhaling anthrax is the deadliest since those spores lodge into the lungs and trigger flu. It's flu.
You got it. You could say flu, Jess. We got it.
Oh, um, I kept wanting to say fuel.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
It's not
It's
fuel,
not
Jess.
fuel. It's not
Does it
fuel.
trigger any fuel in the lungs? Or...
It does not trigger fuel. Triggers flu-like symptoms like fever, fatigue, and a cough, and then releases the toxins that will cause organ failure. If left untreated, it's fatal in up to 90% of the cases.
That's what's even crazier about
Yeah.
this. It's not like another pathogen where you have a pretty good chance of, if you get to it quick enough, you can, give the antidote or do something to stabilize the person. Even with the best medical care, anthrax can still be incredibly deadly.
Exactly.
Which
Yeah.
is even scarier.
It's terrifying.
Yeah.
These little spores just lodge in your lungs, and
especially
good
in
luck.
America, and now, but even in the early 2000s, you just assume that if you have something, they'll figure it out and they'll save you, hopefully,
Yep.
especially if you're healthy going into it. But with anthrax, that's not a guarantee by any means.
No, that's you cross your fingers and toes and just about everything you
Yeah.
can.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's terrifying. And especially because, in the beginning when this first started happening, they had no idea what was happening to these people.
Yeah. So that makes it even harder because doctors were not seeing people with anthrax. And so that makes it even tougher when you go in, and that's not even in people's clinical thinking at all when you get into the
Right.
hospital. Obviously, as it goes along, then it becomes more of something they're looking for. But those first people, it was really tough.
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly. I remember, I think NCIS did an episode like anthraxy something.
Yeah. And it was a fear for a long time. I mean, even to this day, if you have like powder on an envelope, you're freaking out.
Oh, yeah.
But
Yep.
but at that time, I mean, even just regular people, when you get your mail, you're like shaking it to check if something comes out and all that, and only opening things who it's from, and
right.
So it definitely added a new fear to Americans at a time when we already had new fears that people didn't know if there were going to be more terrorist attacks. We didn't know, what was going to happen next. And so it was a wild time to have another thing starting a week later that
Right.
was more terror attacks, essentially,
Yeah, it's not like there was even time to breathe. It was just
No, you're still in
boom,
the shock
boom.
of the first one.
Yeah.
That was by far the worst thing that's happened in most Americans' lives at that time. And you're already on edge, and then this starts happening. So
It's wild. It's a wild, wild time. On October 2nd, Bob Stevens, age 61, was rushed to the hospital for a fever and confusion. Bob, at the time, was a photo editor at American Media and was known for his love of fishing and family. Initially, it was suspected that Bob had meningitis, which fever, confusion, I could see how that would get messed up.
And far more common too. So if somebody comes in with those types of symptoms, you would think meningitis before 90 other things, including anthrax.
I know. Yeah. I don't think this was even like, I mean, it's a thing in livestock. It's not really a thing that is common anywhere else.
Yeah.
Really.
I wonder if there were any other cases, even coming from like farm workers or, things like that. I wonder if there were other cases in the past in America or not. That's something we'll have to look into.
We'll have to look into. Let us know if you know.
Yeah. Please comment below if you know the history of, anthrax and treatments and stuff in America prior to this case.
After tests, it was confirmed on October 4th so 2 days later, that Bob had inhaled anthrax. He died the following day, and this was the first anthrax death in the U.S. in decades. So
okay.
Apparently,
So
there
had been some, but it was very rare if, 300 million plus people at that time, and it had been decades since somebody else had anthrax or died from it. So,
well, and if you think about it, why would a photo editor have come across anthrax? It's not
a livestock disease.
Yeah.
I mean, and where was he at? Was he in Virginia or?
It's a good question. He worked at American Media.
Okay.
I don't remember exactly where Bob was.
But he was somewhere in a populated East Coast city,
Mm-hmm.
which is about as far away from where you'd think someone would kind of come into contact with anthrax as you could
Right.
get. So,
I mean, we know he wasn't a farmer, so
yeah, yeah. So, I mean,
mm-hmm.
that already pulls him circumstantially out of the realm of anyone you'd think would ever get anthrax.
Right. Yeah. Yep. So when they learned this, panic just started spreading. The next victim was 73-year-old Ernesto Blanco. He was a mailroom worker. He tested positive for cutaneous or through skin anthrax. He went through a week of treatment and survived. The building was sealed and the 300 employees were evacuated. It was a biohazard zone for years and it cost $24 million to decontaminate.
Wow. And I
Yeah.
mean, that's the scary thing that you just mentioned too about anthrax is it's not just inhaling. Inhaling is worse because it gets into your lungs.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, even just touching it can
Yep.
infect you and could kill you. I mean, it's usually, I guess, not as bad from touching it as inhaling
Mm-hmm.
it, but still, you know, that's a
Not
wild
great.
pathogen where if you just touch a powder, you could die from it. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's pretty crazy.
Yeah. This is not, this is some really bad stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. The attacks hit the media. Assistant to NBC's anchor Tom Brokaw was Erin O'Connor, who was 38 at the time. She noticed that she had a rash after opening a letter that was postmarked September 18th. She was also diagnosed with cutaneous anthrax. That was on October 12th. And Erin was one of 7 NBC employees who were exposed.
Mm-hmm. Was it from the same letter or was it from multiple letters?
That's a good question. I don't know. Um, that's a very good question. I know that they were sent, at least one letter was sent to NBC.
Yeah,
It
and I
was
think
hard
one
to,
was actually addressed to Tom Brokaw too, because he
yeah.
was like their head anchor at the time for news.
Yeah, I think that this was this one. Like
Okay,
she was opening his letter because she was assistant to him. That's
sure.
how I read it and understood it
Okay,
as.
so it's probably the one letter that then infected. What'd you say? 7 people?
7 people, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, which is wild.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, it's a little fine powder, like
Hmm.
very, very fine powder. If you think of like baby powder,
Yeah.
that's what I'm picturing. It just goes everywhere.
Yeah.
Or if you've tried to bake with cornstarch, you just take the container off and it just poof, it's everywhere.
Yeah, and it's because it wasn't. I mean, these were in normal letter envelopes.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like, you know, some giant box and then, you know, it's triggered to where you open it and it just explodes with, you know, pounds of powder everywhere.
Right.
This
Yeah.
was a little envelope that
Mm-hmm.
then you open it and that was enough to release it into the entire
Yeah.
room. So,
Yeah.
ugh.
Yeah. If I didn't say already, Aaron survived. A 56-year-old who worked in the mailroom at the New York Post developed a skin lesion that looked like what Aaron had developed. And it was confirmed on October 19th to be anthrax. That he survived as well. On October 15th, an aide in Senator Daschle's Hart Senate office building opened a letter, released a cloud of powdery anthrax so fine that it contaminated the entire floor.
Wow.
Then a letter that, sorry, it sent me a notification. I have a little pop out and it's popped a little notification that's like, you can live stream. Let's not do that right now.
While we're like doing podcasts.
Oh, I thought it was an issue.
Yeah. Yeah, don't hit that button. I don't want to go live right now.
Well, it's not hooked up to anything,
Okay.
so we're
We're
safe.
good.
We're safe.
If we are live, hello everybody out there. We're live.
We better not be live.
I hope we're not live. We want to edit this.
Oh, that would be a nightmare.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a reason we don't do lives. Maybe one day if we do a Patreon or something, but even then, maybe an uncut version.
This is why we don't do live.
Oh gosh.
We'll do an uncutted episode for you guys.
Oh gosh. Apparently my brain is too mushy today. Just words don't work.
That's okay. We all have those days.
So, then a letter that was sent to Senator Patrick LaHaye. Luckily, this letter was intercepted at the mail facility and was found to be even more refined and contaminated an estimate of 1 billion spores per gram. That amount was enough to kill thousands if it was dispersed.
So it's almost like whoever's doing this is actually getting better, at doing it.
That's what it
and being
sounds like.
more effective and more deadly and more, as it's progressing.
Mm-hmm.
So, which is even scarier and scarier,
Terrifying,
because
yeah.
not only is it obviously a serial thing that's happening, but then the person is actually refining their skills at being more deadly with it. So, or people.
Yeah. Person or persons.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get into it probably next episode. But to continue, so the people who died, Robert Stevens, who we talked about, the photo editor at American Media, Thomas Morris Jr., a USPS employee in Washington, D.C., Joseph Kursine, a USPS employee at the same facility as Thomas, Kathy Wynn, a hospital worker in Manhattan, New York, Adelie Lundgren, a woman from Connecticut. She tested positive. Anthrax wasn't found in her house, but investigators were pretty sure that she was exposed to contaminated mail, which is, I mean, it could have happened to anybody if you think about it that way.
Yep.
Like if these anthrax letters were just sent in the mail,
and they get thrown in bins, with thousands of other letters, and then thrown on a truck, and then they're sorted, and that, it could contaminate thousands and thousands of letters that are all going to different homes and businesses. So especially if it's that that like fine and that much anthrax and that little amount of powder, that could really affect a lot of people.
Yeah.
And that's where I think that people who didn't live through that time and just read the story, they don't understand as much why everybody was so worried about it, even though if they weren't part of, a government agency or they weren't part of the news, or whatever. It's just nobody knew if it was going to infect their own mail or any of that, even if it wasn't meant for them.
Exactly.
So it definitely was a scary time to go get your mail and open it up.
Right. Yeah. No, it's mind blowing. I mean, like, what's really blowing my mind is how, it was able to disperse so freely. Most things don't disperse like in a cloud that can fill a whole room.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you think about opening a letter, and I can't imagine, even if you put, I don't know, any kind of fine powder in a letter, I can't imagine it going anywhere than just like my chair.
Yeah. If you put baby powder in a letter and you open the letter, you could see how like a little puff would come out, and maybe get something. But to see like this whole place would just be covered in it and it would go out the window and infect people. And that's some wild stuff.
Yeah. No, it's hard to imagine it being real. Like I'm just picturing a cartoony thing in my head.
Yeah.
Where it's like just a letter open and then white smoke that just goes everywhere.
Goes everywhere and infects everybody around. Yeah. And even it sounds like goes onto a surface and then someone comes into the room 3 hours later and grabs something off that surface and they're infected. That's terrifying.
Honestly, I know it was bad. I'm not saying it's not bad, but I am shocked that it wasn't worse.
Correct. Yeah. And part of it, I think, is they did get onto things a little bit. And so they started putting out notices to people and like, don't open stuff if you don't know where it came from. And it still could come out, letters also aren't completely tight. They have seams and stuff too, so it could still come out. But I think there was an effort to get people to not just open anything that they'd find in the mail. So I think that probably did help a little bit, along with also just the public awareness that if you do have any powder that comes out of a letter, immediately go to the hospital and, get out of your house or your business or whatever. So that I think did help too.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so true. And then, so those were the people who unfortunately died. And then there were 17 others who were infected, but they did make it. They survived.
Mm-hmm.
Hart Senate building closed for months as hazmat teams cleaned every surface. Which I would not want to be on the
No.
hazmat team to go in. Mm-mm.
I mean, even if you have a suit and you have all the, PPE and everything, it still is like
A possibility.
yeah. And then even taking off the hazmat suit. I mean, what happens if, it gets in the air and you breathe it in then? And that would be terrifying.
I mean, I've gone through hazmat training
Mm-hmm.
with being a paramedic. We do it every so often. And we do have like a specialized team if something happens that
Sure.
we need it. We do have a team. I am not on the team. I don't want any
It's
part of
probably
that.
good.
Yeah, I don't want any part of that. But the amount of like how to properly put it on, how to properly take it off, and even that, it still freaks me out.
Yeah, I could see that because if you get one step halfway wrong, you could be exposed to whatever
Mm-hmm.
horrible chemical or
Yeah.
bacterium that you have on your suit.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's like I don't know. It's a ton of stuff that you have on. Some of them have like little like fans on the inside to keep you cool.
Sure.
And it's like, I just think about what if you start having like a panic attack? Like you're stuck in that suit until you can properly get everything off in the correct way.
Yeah, I mean, your options are either get through your panic attack or possibly die. So,
I know. I'm
which
just,
which also
oh,
doesn't help your panic attack when you think that those
I
are your
know.
options.
Yeah. You're trapped in a suit for hours.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I mean, shout out to those people who were courageous enough to do it. It's right up there
Yeah.
with the people who clean up nuclear disasters and stuff and
Yeah.
are exposed to radiation. And
If you do that, thank you.
yeah, comment and we'll give you an extra thumbs up if you're a anthrax cleaner upper or a hazmat person.
Yeah. That I couldn't even imagine doing that. That's so
No.
wild.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so the post office in DC spent $130 million in decontamination. They also issued 4.5 million masks and 20 million gloves to workers. They installed machines to sterilize mail as they come in, and they spent $800 million on safety upgrades.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I mean, good for them for taking it very seriously,
Yeah.
obviously, and saying we'll do whatever we have to do to end this. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Well, it's like, I mean, same thing kind of happened through 9/11, though.
Mm-hmm. And all the metal detectors and all the upgraded TSA stuff and
Yep.
screening. And I mean, that was probably billions of dollars with all the airports and
I'm
everything that
sure,
they had to
yeah.
do. So,
Yep.
a lot of money spent at that time, but hopefully to make Americans safer in the long
Mhm.
run. So,
Yeah, think about that the next time you're stuck in the what is it, the TSA line or
yeah,
whatever.
true.
Be like, "Well, it's here for a reason."
Yeah. But also, I don't want to miss my flight. So, can we hurry it up a little bit?
Yeah, I feel that.
Yeah.
I don't know how that feels yet, so one day.
Yeah. We got to get Jess on a plane here soon.
One day. It'll come. It'll
Yeah.
come. So, over 32,000 people in journalism or Capitol Hill staffers decided to take antibiotics like Cipro. This caused a shortage of it and prices of it spiked. It's kind of like with COVID and toilet paper.
Mm-hmm. Although this one actually maybe was more beneficial than the toilet paper.
I don't
If we
know why
have a
the toilet paper.
respiratory virus pandemic, you don't need more toilet paper. It'll be okay. A normal amount of toilet paper will get you through.
I just don't know how that even started.
I don't either. It was one of those things that just snowballed. Like you see one video of one like Costco, people just going crazy, and then pretty soon everybody was just going crazy for toilet paper.
Mm-hmm.
If anything, people should have got Kleenex because it was like more of a head thing than I don't know. Don't do a run on Kleenex either if we have issues.
No, please don't.
You'll be okay.
Just take the proper amount
Yeah.
and it'll be fine.
Yeah. But in this case, honestly, I do get people who are in high risk for exposure
Mhm.
wanting to take antibiotics because then, it could give them some protection almost immediately when that bacteria hits their bloodstream and stuff, and at least, even if they still have issues with it, hopefully save their lives. So
Right.
I don't blame these people for doing it, even if it did cause a shortage.
No, I don't blame them either. No, that's a terrifying time.
Mm-hmm.
Pharmacies saw a 200% increase in antibiotics, and white powder became an obsession through the nation. The FBI now faced an impossible task: catch a bioterrorist who left no fingerprints, no DNA, and no real clear motive, because, they're just picking what we see as random people. Maybe there
Yeah.
was a reason. We don't know what that reason is, though.
Yeah, the only thing they had was that some of the letters, said things like "Death to America," or,
Mm-hmm.
and they almost had like a terroristic, like Al Qaeda type bent
Mm-hmm.
to a lot of them. And I think so that was where they were thinking this was like part two of September 11th. That
Right.
Al Qaeda and these terror groups were now sending bioweapons to people. Which we'll find out, maybe was to throw people off, maybe not,
Yeah.
but yeah, they it's really hard, especially with stuff like this, to trace it and track it and figure out where it could come from and everything, because it's such a like silent small killer.
Mm-hmm.
So
It's like, I'm just thinking too, the how they got all of that in these letters too. They must have like a big, huge, I mean, we don't really know, but they
yeah.
must have this huge like lab or something.
Yeah, because think about the risk to the person or people sending it too.
Yeah.
If it's that deadly to someone else, think about like making it, packaging it, sending it.
Yeah, you're the
um
one making it even
yeah,
finer,
you go and drop these letters off in a mailbox. I mean, that would be terrifying. Not that I have much sympathy for the person.
No, I
It would
don't,
have been
but
great if
yeah.
they'd gotten it, put an end to it. But yeah, I mean, that the amount of skill and kind of refinement, and also
Mhm.
like deep motivation to go through all of that and basically risk your own life in order to
Right.
do this,
Yep.
is pretty intense.
And I mean, yeah, we really don't know if they ended up surviving or not. Like maybe the person who put this powder into these envelopes, maybe they did die.
Hmm.
Who's to say that they didn't?
Yeah, it's
Maybe
possible.
they're like, we understand the risks, and if we get it, we're not going to go get it treated or
Hmm.
whatever to risk being exposed, or
Yeah, yeah.
I
And I
don't
mean,
know.
some people, obviously in September 11th, the hijackers, they didn't care about their own lives,
Right.
and fulfilling their mission.
Yep.
So that was definitely a theme going on at this time too, that we didn't know if the person cared or not, whether they got infected.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah. Wild.
hmm.
This investigation became one of the largest in FBI history and spanned 7 years. Agents conducted over 10,000 interviews across 6 continents, issued 6,000 grand jury subpoenas, and searched 80 locations. They collected 5,730 environmental samples from 60 sites, testing for anthrax traces in soil, air, and equipment. The big question, though, was this tied to 9/11? By October of 2001, the FBI identified the anthrax as the Ames strain, a highly poisonous type isolated in Texas in 1981 and used exclusively in U.S. biodefense labs, not terrorist camps.
Which is impressive that they were able to take this little bacteria and figure out where it came from, and that it was actually an American one and not
Mm-hmm.
from the Middle East or wherever, they were
Right.
worried that this was coming from. So pretty impressive work that they could figure all that out from
Mm-hmm.
just samples of it.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, thinking about, I was obviously way too young at this point to know or even process what was really going on. But like, could you imagine if we were like our ages that we are now, watching this on the news and all of a sudden seeing that it was not what we
Yeah,
expected?
because everybody did think that originally that it was the same thing, Al Qaeda
Mm-hmm.
or one of the Islamic terrorist groups. And so then to find out that no, it's actually like maybe domestic terrorism from somebody inside our country. That's a big shift in mentality, and especially a weird shift too, because like you said, that was the most, at least in my lifetime, that was the most together Americans had been, regardless of politics or anything else. Americans really were like banding together for our country because we were attacked from the outside. And then to find out that you're actually also being attacked from the inside is terrifying too. So
you don't know who to trust, who to not trust, who's the enemy right now.
Exactly.
So radiocarbon dating conducted in June of 2002 showed spores were cultured within 2 years of mailing. Chemical analysts showed no foreign additives, pointing to a domestic source, and the trail led to a U.S. lab. And that is what we have for part 1.
Leave us hanging there.
Yep. So yeah, that's what we have for part 1. And part 2, we're going to talk about potential suspects and kind of where the FBI went.
Yeah, cool. And also, like we said, comment if you remember these times, what was going through your head. If you know anybody who was impacted by this, out in DC or East Coast, let us know what your experiences with this one, since this is a case that most of us were alive while it was taking place. So,
well, you can't even say that anymore, Trent.
Yeah, true. Yeah, that's true.
I mean, because it's 2025 and this happened in 2001.
So if you weren't alive during that time, then we'll give you the info on it. But you can comment how you would have felt if this was taking place during your life.
There you go. I like that. Before we go, make sure that you are following us on all of our social media platforms. They will be linked down below, as well as our email. Feel free to say hi or give us a suggestion on what you would like us to do for an episode. Otherwise, do you have anything else on this part 1?
No, I think we covered it well, and I'm excited to get into part 2 and find out who possibly could be doing this.
All right. Well, we will see you guys in part 2. Bye. Sweet.
That was a really good place to end, I think.
Yeah.
Because it gets through like the first part, but then it also does a good job of like leaving them kind of hanging, of like, here's the little teaser of like, we know where it's coming from, but we don't know who's doing it. So I thought that was actually a really good place to end.
Thank you.